Hey, I'm Matt Hudgins, and he's Dave Mulvaney, and this is Profitability MD. Dave, how you doing today, buddy?
Man, I'm doing good considering what's going on outside. I'm doing real good. How about you?
Going on in the world. We're hanging in there. We're hanging in there. Life is going to be good. We're all going to make it through it. It's not if, it's when.
That's right. Well, it's only a matter of time, and we'll be back making money again.
It's good stuff. All right, so we were going to call this, let's say, episode 66, Thrive in Uncertain Times. Thrive in Uncertain Times. So we're both having these conversations with our business owner clients and with our business owner friends about what to do during these uncertain times. And so these are some themes that you and I were talking about offline about how to thrive during these uncertain times. So I was going to start it off. And so this is always a good exercise to do, which is recall a time in the past when you overcame some big obstacles. So for me and most of us, we were around in 08 and 09 and 010, the last big recession. And I was sharing this with you offline that my business, the investment side, went down probably 25% from the markets. Markets were down 50%. I didn't go down as much, but I lost two big clients during that time. So my revenue went down 50%. And so that's my tragedy of the last recession. What I realized was I had gotten lazy, right? I was, oh, wow, up here, I don't have to do anything. It's all, self-maintaining. That realization was, hey, this is the time. Oh, by the way, and I was dependent on two large clients, which left me, right? So I had a concentration of clients. I had external events, the market's going down. But what I realized, what I could control was I had given up. I was lazy. I wasn't marketing. I wasn't doing what I'm supposed to be doing, our 5 profit activator stuff, right?
Yeah.
I was not doing that stuff. So that got a fire under me to get going and figure this stuff out. So I took that tragedy of the concentration in market events, and then I said, well, you better get your rear end gear to get going. And that got me to figure this stuff out and talk about our, the 5 profit formula and that type of stuff. So that was so look back, and what that does is gives me confidence now. This is not like 2008. We've talked about this in the past. This is not a structural issue. I'm not worried about Bank of America going out of business. This is a temporary shutdown of the economy, absolutely, but the word is temporary. And so if I made it through the 100-year flood, I can make it through this with my eyes closed.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point is that, all right, in 2008, the word temporary never came up. It was, we don't know. Nobody knew. Now, of course, we don't know how long we may be, in our houses or whatever. But what we do know is when they say, okay, you can go back out, most people are going to run out the doors, and the first thing they're going to do is want to go to work.
Right.
And so, one of the ways that I think you want to go through this is, well, don't wait. Create some really good relationships instead of being the doom and gloomer all over the internet.
Right.
Be the person, make more connections on LinkedIn and Twitter and start building your network and build relationships with people through social media. Why? Because you got some extra time on your hand. And those relationships are going to allow you to, if you can provide value to someone else, that can help them, then they're going to naturally, they're going to want your product or service naturally.
Oh, exactly. The reciprocity. So what I'm calling that double down on connecting, And that is on the personal front. So I heard this from one of my other buddies. He's calling one friend a day, the personal side, calling out to a college buddy, high school buddy, just one call a day where he's calling somebody he hadn't chatted with. So he's doubling down on connecting. You and I were just talking about it offline, where let's double down and connect with our businesses, right? Our suppliers, our customers. But we're not trying to sell anything right now because we know nobody's buying right now. But the trick to that would be, let's have a conversation with those people. Hey, we all know this is temporary. What are you going to be working on when this is over? Right? So I'm trying to sell you on your future. When we get out of this, what are the 2 or 3 things you're working on?
And I think one thing that United States companies, and I'm guilty, I have an LED lighting company, and all of our LEDs come from China. I'm really kind of rethinking that whole relationship is, and I'm saying this, and any of my Chinese vendors could watch this. I think more and more U.S. companies need to look at and say, yeah, it's going to cost me to make it in America, but I want to put that flag on my products because we need to be Americans again.
That's there's an opportunity. We talked about last time, opportunity during times of crisis. Yeah.
I mean, we can look at it. We realize we have a tremendous dependence on another country right now. And it's probably not the best dependence, but at the same time, sometimes you'll learn more when like something goes wrong. And we're learning right now that if our oil industry needs protection, we are oil independent and we're getting messed with. So things need to be done. If things are good, you never know anything has to be done.
That's right.
It's usually during the divorce, they say, when you really learn who your partner really was.
That's interesting. I've thought about that.
Yeah, so I prefer not to ever experience that, but it's still kind of the same thing. When you start having supplier issues, it really kind of exposes this.
This is now totally unrelated, but I was talking to one of my business owner clients yesterday, right? So my business owners, I've been encouraging them to know your numbers. What do your numbers look like? What's your overhead look like? Because we're not having what does it look like? And we're talking about the bailouts and that type stuff. But let's put a plan together, kind of our, need to cut, who's your go in the second, go in the third. Okay. I'm getting busted again.
Yeah. You might have to say that again because I caught you, but then you broke up a little bit.
All right. So talking about my clients, you need to know your numbers. What's your overhead number on a monthly basis? So let's at least get prepared to be, if we had to make some cuts, who would our first people to go when we make cuts, second people, third leg down, right? And so in that, we're talking about the first leg of cuts could be an opportunity to upgrade, right? If there are 3 or 4 people I want to get rid of because they're not performing, this is an opportunity to get rid of those people and find 3 other people that could be performing, right? But my point being, he was talking about this and I'm not gonna mention any names, but he gave like the doom and gloom talk, hey, no revenue coming in. We're gonna have to make some tough choices. I've been trying to stay, I've been up for the last 3 nights in a row trying to figure this stuff out. So there's going to be some tough choices to make. And he said, you can tell the true colors. He has people walking into his office saying, hey, if you need somebody to take a salary cut, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll sacrifice. I want, he did cut some salaries for some of his higher end people. A lot of the executives at these bigger companies are cutting. And the guy gave the team player answer. Hey, I get it. I understand. I'm happy to take the cut. I'm just happy I have a job. Right. And he's like, those are the people I want on my team.
Okay. So I'm going to pause with that.
Yeah.
And let's not name the bank, but we were talking about some people who had to take cuts in the banking industry in the last downturn. You talk about things go positive. And so sometimes like they'll give you stock. This might be a chance for you to be an owner in the company that you work for, because maybe the owner, hey, I'm willing to take a cut, and the owner might come up and say, well, that's the person I want, but here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you X shares for everybody takes a cut. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, all of a sudden you got your retirement is completely different because now the company's booming and you're.
That's a great point. And I'm not going to mention names because this happened to many Fortune 500 companies, some of which I know personally. And that's what it was. They told their senior executives, hey, we're cutting your cash compensation in half and we'll give you the other half in stock, which again, back at that time, we didn't even know if those guys were going out of business, right? But what it turns out, here we are 10 years later, those guys have a giant retirement plan now because they were forced. Again, that wasn't a benefit. They were terrified. To them at the time, it was like worthless. But it turned out to be great. You're exactly right. You could have somebody says, hey, I'll volunteer to take a cut. Do you think you can give me a little bit of equity so when and if we recover, I get a little bonus on the backside, right?
Yeah. So
it could be some opportunities. And we know that Fortune 500 companies do that. We could talk about some small business guys could do that.
And if you are going to thrive in an uncertain time, you have to start looking for opportunity. And so when they teach you, what is it called? Not aggressive driving, but like defensive driving.
Okay.
So they have these race car tracks where you drive a car and you got to put it into a spin, and they'll put a cone there, and it's like a person. And what inevitably happens multiple times is you hit the cone, and then the instructor says, and it keeps happening. And finally the instructor says, well, stop looking at the cone because you're going to hit what you focus on.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So it's the same thing here. If you focus on the crap instead of the opportunity, you're going to end up hitting the cone.
Oh, that's fantastic. So a different client I was talking to, and he's been through this before. He wants to grab market share during this time. And I was like, let's talk about that because, again, people aren't buying right now. So how do you grab market share? It goes back to you talked about earlier. We're talking about double down and you're connecting. He's like, I want all my sales guys reaching out to their people, right? And we came up with, like I can't remember if we talked about online or here, which was, what are you guys going to be working on when we're through this, right? So he's got his sales guys talking to their clients saying, hey, what are the projects that are going to be your priorities when we come out of this? 2 months, 3 months, whatever the time period is, right? And even if we can't help them, just by helping them focused on the future, instead of, like you just said, don't focus on the cone right now, focus on what it looks like when we're out of this 1 month, 2 months, 3 months from now. And just by doing that, you're building goodwill. He says, I know I'm not going to sell anything. And I was like, well, if you have those conversations, again, do client surveys. We talked about this yesterday with one of my clients. I said, how about some client surveys during this downtime? I always like to say, what's working? What do we do well for you? Warm and fuzzy. What could we improve? How could we improve our business? And now you're using this time to do surveys to try to improve your business. And then you write back and say, hey, thanks for all those who responded. Because of that, we're improving our processes so we provide better service to you, right? So that would be a way to use this time to bond with them. Yeah, you're asking for their advice, as well as, hey, I took your advice and I made some changes. We're going to be better when we come out of here. Thanks for your help.
One thing that business owners should be doing, not just now, is when they come out of this, is you need to be in a mastermind. You need to be in a group with other entrepreneurs who are going someplace, because there's nothing like a mastermind when you're trying to figure out a challenge. Because in business, I don't care. Look, it doesn't matter what happens in the economy. There's always challenges that you've never faced before. Like, right. We've never faced this before. And so I'd rather face a challenge like this with 9 other men, and where men you trust, where you can trust in the security, I guess you'd say, where like nobody's going to give your secrets away.
Right.
And you got no competitors in the room. And your goal with each one of you is to help you grow your businesses. That's what a true mastermind is. And I'd rather have the help of 9 other men where I could have, you got a sounding board, you got that, than to try to go through this alone.
Great point. Absolutely.
Because you and I talk all the time, but we're going to add 8 people to this group, not our podcast, but we're going to add 8 people over the next 30 days. So if you are watching this and you want to know how to thrive, Matt and I are going to be taking applications for our mastermind. It's going to be a true mastermind. It's not going to be Matt and Dave leading a group. It's going to be 10 guys in a group, and we're going to literally work through obstacles, vision, all of that to grow your business over the next 10 years, 5 years, whatever you're trying to do with your business.
Absolutely. Because we've all been through this before. We've all had different experiences, and that's where you can learn from each other and from other industries and from other people that have been through it. Right. And you get to bounce ideas off of it. Right.
Yeah. I'm self-employed since 1992, and you've been self-employed since,
let's see. Well, I've had this business for 13 years. So,
but then
you were doing stuff on the side. I've been doing stuff on the side since the 90s. Right. You've been 25 years on the side.
There's a lot of experience when you bring entrepreneurs like us into a room. There's so much experience and so much you're like, that somebody's learned from in the past. And that's what, when you put people together and they're like, oh, hey, because we're entrepreneurs. I'll say something to you and you bring up something, you're like, oh, well, that's like this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I get a breakthrough.
Yeah, it feeds off it. That's a great point. That's a really good point. That's hilarious. We got our mastermind group we're starting. So anybody, come on, send your stuff in. We're doing some interviews. Hey, all right. So here's another thing we're talking about doing. I've been talking to my clients about what are those 5 projects that you've been putting off? What are the 5 things you've been thinking about doing? And they can be personal or business wise, right? So go back to that other client I was talking about doing client surveys. We were also talking about doing some processes. There's some lag in his sales process, right? So how can we improve the sale process during the downtime? I got another guy who's doing, let's call it client research, where I'm researching what the potential future clients could be, right? So we got personal. You want to lose weight, you want to exercise. I'm going back to my 75 hard where I'm doing in the morning and at night, really as a stress reliever, truthfully. but to go exercise in the morning and at night, right? So pick 4 or 5. I say 5. That's just a good number that says 3 business and 2 personal that can be used this time. We're going to have a lot of downtime, and instead of twiddling our thumbs, let's start checking off some boxes on some projects that we just never had the time to do it. Finally work on your business instead of in your business, right?
And this is a good time to build your relationship with your vendors, because you might need their help. Because if your accounts receivable is $250,000 right now, but yet you owe your vendors $100,000, you want to work with your accounts receivable, your customers, but you also want to work with your vendors, because we're going to have to come through together. And because instead of everybody just saying, hey, screw you, and everybody in it for themselves, that's not what we're about as human beings. As entrepreneurs, it takes others to have some success. It doesn't take a village. I don't believe that, but it does take others, and some of those are going to be your vendors. So now would not be a bad time. Out of some of those people that you're reaching out to through social media and other things, reach out to the president of the companies and just say, hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate a relationship. We're going to get through this together. Say something positive. Stay in contact with them, because that's important too. That's
same conversations with them, right? Hey, when so your supplier and your customers, hey, when you come out of this, what are the 2 or 3 things you're focused on, right? So you can have that same conversation with your suppliers, with your customers, with your vendors, all that, in the sense of, hey, we're all in the same boat. Let's share some ideas, and at least let's look past it. You were talking about that earlier, and we mentioned this, I think, I don't know, the last podcast, or maybe it was you and I offline. Be the bearer of the good news. There's plenty of stuff that my clients are reading that's negative. Plenty of stuff, right? So be the bearer of the good news. Hey, I read this about the treatment. Hey, I read this about whatever. You can be the bearer of the good news. Just take that role on, and that can be the way that you double down on your connections. You're going to connect and offer to help. You're going to connect. That's a good one. Connect and offer to help somebody. Hey, is there anything I can do for you? Whether it be personal or business wise, you're going to offer to help, be the supplier of the good news. You're going to ask them for their opinion to help you with your business. You're going to survey them. You're going to ask them to focus. Hey, what are you going to focus on? 2 or 3, the 2 or 3 projects when we get out of here, right? All that leads to, let's stop sitting around here watching the news and all the negative stuff and start focusing on what it looks like when we get out of here.
Well, right? And you might, if you're dependent on the type of company you're in, this might be a time to start thinking about your competitor who you might want to acquire as well. Because you might have a competitor that might be in their 60s or their 70s, and you've got to, you were just about to retool a new production line, and you're going to do this and this so you can put out a new product. I don't know your business, but you got this competitor across town who's 70 years old, and maybe they don't want to rebuild it again. Maybe it's time that they'll transition out, and maybe you can work out a deal where you can buy that company for maybe what the assets cost. You just don't know. And so
that's a great opportunity to look at.
It might be another way where you start thinking about expansion and say, hey, I think it might be a time for an acquisition. A lot of acquisitions are going to happen over the next over the coming months because of that very thing. There's a lot of people out there who actually are looking at this going, this is an opportunity to acquire other companies.
And it's funny you say that, because we were talking about some other This actually stresses the importance of having a plan in place for exit planning, having a plan in place for not pandemics, but troubling times, right? That this is the importance of having a plan in place. Maybe we'll get more people that'll say, gosh, I need a contingency plan. Gosh, I need a better way of doing business. So if there are disruptions, I can pivot faster, right? So this event has stressed the importance of planning. Everybody puts off planning. I'm busy, I'm working. I think this is going to bring a focus on the importance of planning in advance, whether it be exiting your business you were talking about, whether it be planning for working remotely, whether it be planning for growth, whether it be planning for pivoting, right? That we got to, the time of just wandering with your head in the sand is kind of over. You can't just be doing what you're doing and doing what you're doing. You got to have some plans in this business, any business.
In Prosperous in 60, in my online course, there's an entire module that's given to finance. Okay, how to use your business to build wealth, and the process is basically isolate cash, eliminate bad debt. Bad debt being debt that costs you money, doesn't bring in money. If you got a machine that makes you $125,000 a month and you make a $20,000 payment on that machine, that's good debt. Okay, but that being said, you can eliminate all bad debt. Once you eliminate all bad debt, then you want to build these large cash reserves. And I say up to 6 months. You should have 6 months in reserve. And then you continue to build a reserve account, but then you start acquiring cash flowing assets like your competitors, right, in times like this. But it's those 6 months. I can't tell you, imagine how many entrepreneurs, if they're sitting on 6 months cash right now where they can cover all their overhead, you think they have any stress right now? Right. I guarantee you some of them flew to the Caribbean.
Or some of them are planning their what are they going to do when they get out of here? Yeah. Right? 2 or 3 projects. All right, this has been a pretty good discussion. We had thrive in uncertain times, right? And we talked about some good projects you can do. Here's something to do with your time, right? When was the last crisis and how you made it through and how you overcome it? Give yourself confidence by going through that story for yourself. Heck, you can tell your employees how we made it before. We talked about picking projects. What are 5 projects that you've never had time to work on, and now's the time? They could be revising your sales process. They could be doing research on clients, and they could be personal stuff, getting in shape, eating better, yada, yada, yada. We talked about doubling down on your connections, whether it be on the personal side. I've started making phone calls to old college buddies and stuff like that, 1 a day. Doubling down on your connections, talking about your vendors, your suppliers, your clients, and customers. What kind of conversations? Anything. Be the bearer of good news. Be the bearer of, hey, what are the 2 or 3 projects you're going to work on when we're done? Be in the survey. Hey, we're looking to improve during this downtime. What do we do well? What could we do better? Right? And
yep.
You can reach back out with them and say, oh, we took your advice and we made some changes to better serve you going forward. So there's a lot of things that we can be doing. You said looking for acquisitions. You could be considering acquisitions when we come out of
the mastermind. Let's not forget that.
And then the last and least would be, how about a mastermind group? Dave and I are going to start a mastermind group where we're sitting here going to get a group of 10 business owners together who can go forward together and take advantage to thrive during these uncertain times, to turn crisis into opportunity and start planning for the future. That's what we're trying to do. So if you want to do our mastermind, how are we going to get in touch with us?
Well, the easiest way to get in touch with us would be through social media. Connect with Matt and I through LinkedIn. I'm David Mulvaney on LinkedIn, and Matt is Matthew Hudgins on LinkedIn. That's a great way. You can connect with us at profitabilitymd.com. We got to contact us on there. You can connect with us, of course, on our YouTube channel, Profitability MD. So there's different ways to get in touch with us. Once we're more personal. We're not like so corporate where you're just going to. We want to talk to you. We want to find out if you're a fit, because the reality is, when you build a mastermind, Matt and I have been in a mastermind together, going back to the days when we were in Strategic Coach, Dan Sullivan's company together. We built a friendship, and our friendship is based around growing wealth through your business. And we want to make sure that we're going to like each other. You don't want to have somebody in your group that is not positive, not focused on their growth, not focused on where they want to go with their business. You want somebody who's going to be a contributor, not somebody who's going to be a taker. So
that's what I always say. You can be a contributor or a complainer, but you can't be both.
That's right.
We're looking for contributors. All right, man. Where can we find Dave Mulvaney?
You can find me at davidmulvaney.com. Connect with me on social media. David Mulvaney on most social media. My middle initial is T. Some things, like Instagram, David T. Mulvaney. But connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find us at profitabilitymd.com as well.
Perfect. Matt Hudgins over on LinkedIn. I got 10xprofitblueprint.com, 10xprofitblueprint.com. We got our podcast here, which is thrown anywhere where you get your podcasts. We got our Profitability MD YouTube channel. We got our Profitability MD podcast channel. So reach out to us. Let's get going on this, and let's figure out how we're going to thrive during these uncertain times, and what are we going to do when we move out of here.
That's it. All right, man.
Be good.
All right. Bye now.